Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 28th of November 2024 here at the Council Administration Building. The meeting is starting at 9:02 and call for attendance at the commencement. I'd just like to make a warm welcome to Councillor David Martin, your first Ordinary Council meeting for this term, so welcome, and also probably your first council meeting on live stream as well, so welcome. And around the area, we've got Councillor Madden and all the other Councillor Antonelli, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Tully, Deputy Mayor Johnick, Councillor and Augustine and Councillor Madsen. So thank you very much. Now do an acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, customs, cultures and stories of proud people. We now move into the opening prayer. I'd like to invite Pastor Matt Anstey from the Kruger Parade Baptist Church to come to the lectern. Thank you very much, Pastor, for coming in this morning to provide an opening prayer. Please feel free to introduce yourself and a prayer, but also tell us a little bit about what's happening, especially in the lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. And it's really a pleasure to be here and a privilege because the more times I do this, the more faces that I know and get to remember. So it's a real privilege. Matt, Kruger Parade Baptist in the Red Bank area, leading up to Christmas. I guess in a lot of ways, Christmas is the Christian time. This is our time to shine. And we've got a number of carols that are building up and we do give you thanks for the carols in our area that Ipswich City Council is sponsoring. Working hard with a number of churches this year. I think there's 5 churches on board, which is really encouraging that the connection is growing between the churches in the area and then seeing people coming and connecting in. So that's not this weekend, but next weekend. So it's a bit of a rush for me personally. It's a AGM for our church this weekend. So this week and next week are the busy ones. So I'm looking forward to the 8th being over, and then I can enjoy the rest of Christmas in a little bit of an easier way. But absolutely grateful for the work of council and the things that the councillors do. I actually straddle in the church that I'm in 3 different areas, and so I'm grateful for 6 of the councillors who are in our areas, and also grateful for the councillors over this direction as well. But we're grateful for the privilege of being able to speak at this time and be able to pray an open council session today. So let's pray. Lord God, we are so aware that you are over all things, the ruler of all. And so we just come before you and acknowledge your goodness and your love. We pray you hand a blessing upon this council as they meet, and especially we lift up Dave as he starts his role as councillor this morning and in this meeting. Lord, we thank you for the councillors that you've put in authority over us as churches, as community groups, as people in this city. Lord, we pray that you would continue to work for the blessing and the benefit of this city, and we pray that the councillors might work well together to be able to change rules, to come up with new ideas, to lay down paths, to pick up rubbish, to do the things that they need to do to coordinate this city to be a shining light for Queensland. Lord, we thank you for the hearts and the lives of those who live in this city and pray your blessing upon it. And we pray, Lord, that you might give great wisdom and understanding to these councillors as they meet today and decide things that will have great impact upon your city. Praise in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Matt. Item 4 are apologies and a leave of absence. I have none unless anyone would like to provide one. Thank you. Item 5, condolences. There are none. 6, tributes. There are none. 7 is a presentation of petitions, and I note 7.1 is the Goodna Dog Park proposal for 25 Mill Street, Goodna. And I'd just like to welcome Lauren, the petitioner, who's actually here in the public gallery as well. Thank you very much for coming along. The petition before us is that the petition be received and referred to the relevant council department for investigation and a report back to the relevant council committee meeting. And normally we would not sort of debate things when a petition is brought forward, we would get that advice. As per the email I did send out to all the councillors, Lauren Alder-Bevank, who was the petitioner, I had managed to chat with her at a neighbourhood watch meeting recently, and we were just talking about the restrictions on the buyback land, and she mentioned Warren Park. So I guess I wouldn't mind discussing that. We have very strict rules around the petition, so I'll deal with the matter before us here, and so I will move that the petition be received and referred to the relevant council department for investigation and a report back to the relevant council committee meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Tully. I guess I just spoke to it a bit. I'd be supporting this to go back to the council for a review, especially at the moment we're doing the community consultation on the voluntary home buyback land, which is part of that, and noting the restrictions that we do have. Councillor Tully, do you wish to make any comments as a seconder?
No, I know, I think council is aware there's perhaps an alternative matter to the petition, but I think the formality of referring it to the committee and then getting a recommendation back for a final decision is probably the appropriate way to go.
Right. And just your advice, Councillor Tully, in regards to the petition has now suggested that Warren Park and L Street is an alternative because they're mainly after a dog park south. Do you have any views or comments on that?
No, but I think the park to the north of the highway, of course, is not as readily accessible as one would be more in the suburb area to the south of the highway. So that's certainly an alternative if the one on Brisbane Terrace is not regarded as suitable.
Yep. I guess I'm keen to open up the discussion on do we ask council officers to also assess Warren Park as a viable dog park as well, and what any views here of the council?
Yeah, I'm happy if they do that.
If they do that, if that's
part of their report, yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just check. CEO, will we need to include that, or just that will the council officers sort of include it based on this conversation?
I think you could go either way there, through you. If you wanted to have it recorded, you could fashion another resolution, but we're certainly happy to take that as an action and give that consideration at the same time.
Okay. So in that case, I'll do that recommendation that the petition be received and referred to the relevant council department as per here. Can I move also that we have a recommendation B that Warren Park and Alice Street is also looked at as part of that review? I'll just check with the seconder if that's okay. I know it's a bit out of what we normally do, but...
No, I'll accept that, yes.
You'll do that?
That's a good idea, yeah.
I'll just let Vicky put that up. So the mover and the seconder are happy with A and B. I'll now open that up for discussion in the council.
Can I just
Yes,
seek a
Councillor.
clarification, if I may, just with respect to recommendation, or what is now recommendation A, I believe. Just to clarify, is it standard practice? This is the first time I've seen it used in this way. The relevant council/committee meeting, is that standard practice, or do we nominate one or the other?
We usually leave it pretty open. I think Councillor Tully, you were saying something?
I think the meeting procedure talks about relevant council officer. I'll just have a look at that.
Just if I read 9.9.2 of our meeting procedures policy, so that where a council presents a petition to a meeting of council, no debate on it or relation should be allowed. Only the motion which may be moved to the petition is that be A, received, B, be received and referred to a committee or officer for consideration and report back to the council, or C, not be received because it's deemed invalid. So hope open to changing that.
Well, I would think for clarification we should choose one or the other.
Well, I'm happy to make it to the relevant
committee. Yeah, I would
okay.
think that would be the standard practice.
I'll just check with the seconder, Councillor Tully.
That's fine.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Tully. I normally a lot of have debate when petitions are first put in. We usually have the discussion once we get the report back from council. So if there doesn't seem to be any other discussion, I'll put the A and B to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 8, presentations and deputations. There are none. Item 9, public participation, there is none. 10, matters of public interest, none. 11, declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. At this stage, I have no declarations of, I'll just open it up. Are there any, if at any stage, if the discussion goes to a certain way, please let me know. Item 12, confirmation of the minutes. So we go to 12.1, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting. And I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting on the 24th of October 2024 be confirmed. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any errors, omissions, corrections? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 13, the mayoral minute, there is none. 14, business outstanding, including conduct matters and matters lying on the table to be dealt with, there is none. So we go to item 15, which is the reception and consideration of the committee reports. And the first one is the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee report. I'll hand over to the chair of that committee to see how he would like this report managed.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, I'd like to move the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee number 2024-06 of the 14th of November 2024 be received and adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Tully, as the Deputy Chair of that. Thank you. I'll open it up now for discussion. Councillor Tully, do you wish to speak to the report?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind speaking to a couple of the items briefly, if I may, Mayor. Item 3, the IGO Parking Action Plan. This is a whole-of-city approach to parking, delivering better outcomes for residents, visitors and businesses. It replaces a 13-year-old strategy primarily set for the Ipswich CBD, but this one will extend for the next 10 years. Extensive consultation was undertaken to better understand the communities and business needs on this matter. A key foundation of the plan is to take a demand management approach to parking, and that such strategy will allow us to optimise parking supply now and into the future. The plan will also help us balance the demands of residents, visitors and businesses. Other key points of the plan are the updating of the Ipswich Central parking framework, a new parking framework for Springfield Central. It includes school parking updates and incorporates new and contemporary curbside users such as micro-mobility, electric vehicle parking and charging, as well as outdoor dining possibilities. With this new framework, we and the Ipswich community can feel confident that this framework will supply ample parking space to suit their needs. Item 4, asset and infrastructure capital delivery. Yesterday, Mayor, I took the opportunity to inspect the works for the new children's playground at Cameron Park, and I commend the work of the contractor and council's crews who are involved. It is looking amazing. I'm sure the children of the area, particularly Newtown, Silkstone and Baval, are all excited for the soft opening, which we hope to have in a couple of weeks. And I'm sure the parents will be keen to take their kids to it as well. And this will officially upgrade this large parkland from a local park to a district level park. I'm sure Councillor Doyle has an enormous interest in that as well and may speak to it. Item 6, P&D Court Action Status Report. I just want to thank our development planning team and our legal teams for their efforts in bringing our court matters down significantly. I recall that in April of this year, we were involved in at least a dozen matters, and we're now down to only 5, which I believe will shorten again come next committee round. This is an outstanding effort by all involved. I'd like to make particular mention to our outgoing development planning manager, Greg Potter. Greg, I'd like to congratulate you on your new appointment at another SEQ council, but personal congratulations on your efforts in bringing our court matters down and working through some of these very tough mediations and negotiations. Further, it's been a pleasure working with you, Greg. Even though the time has been limited, I wish you all the best in the future. And, item 7. The membership to our committee is going to be bolstered through a recommendation to allow Councillor Martin, the new Councillor Martin, to be appointed to the committee. I just want to cement my support behind that. I note that it was unanimous at committee, and I'm sure it will be so today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I open up for other discussions. Yes, Councillor Tully.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd firstly like to speak to item 3, the IGO Parking Action Plan, and as the chair of the committee said, this is a 10-year plan across the city, but principally in relation to parking and access issues in the CBD and around the Springfield Town Centre and the suburb of Springfield Central in particular, and I'll speak to that shortly in more detail. We know that the capacity in the CBD for parking and the opportunity for parking is often at a premium. We have parking meters, there are some parking stations and off-street parking which is available, but it's an issue that's faced by any larger city in Australia. But in relation to the Springfield area, the demand there is growing very rapidly because of the Greater Springfield suburb development. We have the new railway station car park that's been there for a couple of years near the AFL Stadium and near the Springfield Central Railway Station. And that's a changing demand and opportunity there. A lot of traffic, as I've mentioned before, is now parking on Australia Avenue, which links at right angles to the railway line there in the railway station. That probably, with the amount of development that's going to occur, will mean that this action plan will need to be put in to place rather quickly as that development occurs and other demands occur for parking, because parking on that particular street, for example, will be at a premium if further development adjacent to it on both sides occurs. I think this is a plan that's very well positioned for us to make those decisions quickly into the future as the traffic needs change, as demand for parking increases, and the opportunity for people accessing that area in particular is regulated in a way which is appropriate. Those general comments, of course, apply to the CBD, but those issues are quite apparent now, what we need to do and what we should be doing. So I like the tabular form in which the officers have put this report together. There's matrices and tabular forms about what sort of variations and changes will be made. So I'll just finish on that point of congratulating the officers for a very well actioned plan. I'd also like to, in relation to item 7, welcome Councillor Martin to the committee. I'm not sure that I agree with the chair that he called him the new Councillor Martin. I don't want to use the alternative to new, but can I just say personally welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open up for other discussion. If I could just add to, obviously we've had all discussing the item 3, which is the IGO parking action plan. In order for our city to function effectively and be productive, viable travel and parking choices do need to be provided. This plan has identified 31 actions for council to deliver over the coming years to address the challenges as well as the opportunities that we face regarding parking. This new plan takes into consideration the challenges for parking in one of the fastest growing cities in the state, and also looks at the increased traffic congestion and demands that growth places on transport infrastructure, including parking. There are currently just over 6,200 publicly owned operating parking spaces in Ipswich Central, made up of about 4,200 on-street public parking and about 2,000 off-street public parking spaces. So that's basically the equivalent of 12 football fields of parking. So this plan looks at how we can increase how many people are utilising these existing parks before more public parking is provided. It also looks across, as Councillor Tully said, our broader local government area rather than just the CBD, those other fast-growing areas. And I'd like to highlight the extensive community consultation that has occurred with the community, with industry, the local businesses who obviously wanting to see making it easy for customers to come and visit them, but with the Ipswich community panels as well. So there have been a series of in-person and online meetings, community pop-up sessions, interviews with industry bodies, engagement with 2 Ipswich community panel workshops, as well as online consultation on the Shape Your Ipswich webpage. So at each stage of this way, on this 3-phase journey, the feedback was continually incorporated into the plan and those drafts shared back with the stakeholders and the community. So I'd like to thank everyone in the Ipswich community who participated to help shape this IGO parking action plan. It's only as good as the information that we get and the communication that we receive. Thank you to the council officers, because I think we all ultimately want Ipswich to be safe and accessible for everyone, as well as supporting our local economy. I'll hand over to any other comments. I think as the mover, do you have any right of reply or summary comments, Councillor Tully?
I'd just like to thank yourself and Councillor Tully for your comments on the parking plan. I too would like to commend the officers involved. This has been quite an enormous piece of work by them. I also note that as a strategy, I did say that it will be for the next 10 years, but it does provide great flexibility to be responsive to the needs as they change in our CBD and other areas of the city. So it will always be flexible enough to ensure that our parking demands will be well and truly catered for. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 15.2, the report of the Finance and Governance Committee of the 14th of November 2024. I'll hand over to the chair of that committee to see how we'd like that report managed.
Finance and Governance Committee report number 2024-06 of the 14th of November 2024, with the exception of item 8, which I'll move separately, be received and the recommendations contained therein be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Antonelli. As the member, I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of items that I'll speak to. One is in relation to item 3 on page 83 of our reports. That's the proposal to acquire property located at South Ripley with EnviroPlan levy funds. That's an area of 320,000 square metres or 32 hectares for environmental purposes. That's significant koala habitat. It's a recommendation of the committee that that area be acquired with the funds from that fund. There are several animal species there, including koalas, an important species of flora. It's a good example of using that EnviroPlan fund for matters of this nature. The acquisition, of course, is important for the city, and we've been acquiring significant parcels of land across the city using these funds for many years now. Councillors will see in the preamble to the report or to the report on the committee that it talks about the it's a pivotal position within the Flinders-Karawatha Environmental Strategic Corridor between the Flinders-Goulman Conservation Estate and the White Rock Spring Mountain Conservation Estate. So I'd urge councillors to support that. I think it's a very important acquisition, and it will indicate to the community the importance of the EnviroPlan levy and how it's actually being utilised within our city. I just mentioned briefly item 4, which is an interesting item in relation to a small parcel of land. It's on the boundary of Ipswich City Council and Somerset Councils. There has been at Marburg, it's a property that now straddles the two boundaries, and as required by law to put the ownership all into one council or the other. But understand where the house is in Somerset, but there's another small parcel of land from an adjoining property which has been subdivided and put into the adjoining property, which means the property basically is into two council areas. I've had a close look at this. It's only a small parcel of land, but it's a cooperation we have between the two councils to ensure. I don't think ratepayers like to get two rate notices for the one, basically the one parcel of land. So this is just an opportunity to bring that, regularise that. That will go back to the Somerset Council and to the state government for a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jelly, as a seconder, do you wish to speak to that? No? Oh, yes. I was going to speak also about that particular item 2 as well, Councillor Tully, on item 3. Council looks to invest in EnviroPlan levy funds in property to protect our environment and to restore ecosystems and achieve more resilient landscapes. We want to protect our unique flora and fauna now and for future generations, and this property sits between White Rock, Spring Mountain Conservation Estate and the Flinders-Goulman Conservation Estate. The broader Flinders-Karawatha corridor is the largest remaining continuous stretch of open eucalypt forest in southeast Queensland, and that is why Council is looking to purchase properties that allow for ecological corridors to be connected so animals can move freely within them. This area here is a significant conservation area for Council, and when you look at the growth that's happening near there, like Springfield and Ripley, it's really important that we do have those green spaces, and those conservation areas are so very important for local fauna, but also for us as people as well, for us to visit and enjoy nature. I'll open it for any other discussion. Councillor Tully, any closing remarks?
No, thank you, and appreciate those comments, which puts that whole program into the context of what we're trying to achieve across the city.
Thank you. that case, I put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Now, I guess Councillor Tully, you should deal with item 8.
Yes,
They're the
Mayor.
investigations policy.
I'll move in relation to that A and B, well, not the A and B printed there, but that Council repeal the existing investigations policy as detailed in attachment 1. And that's part of the recommendation from the committee. But in relation to B, that B reads that Council adopt the revised investigation policy as circulated to all councillors and the committee clerk, subject to, this is part of the recommendation, it's not a separate amendment, it's just part of the recommendation, subject to adding the following words at the end of the 3rd paragraph of section 15.2. Until the council approves such panel by resolution, the Chief Executive Officer may engage an investigator from an appropriate panel established by local by.
Thank you. So you are the mover. Do I have a seconder for? I'll just wait for the.
Can I seek a clarification on whether we need to further clarify local buy as the LGAQ local buy or anything, or do we, or is that a
Is there any other local?
is that
buy,
recognised?
CEO? There's, I understand from the CEO, there's no other local buy. It's the LGAQ.
So okay, well, that's, thank you.
I'll just check that that's been moved. I'm just looking if someone's seconding that, or is there a query about the actual wording? I think Councillor Doyle has a.
Well, can I speak to the motion?
Well, in that case, we need it seconded, so then Councillor Tully can move to it. So I think Councillor Madden is happy to second it. So I'll let you speak to that, Councillor Tully.
Yes, Mayor. People will be aware that the state government has prepared a sample or an example investigation policy for each of the 77 councils in Queensland, and each council is required to adopt a policy for investigations of complaints made against councillors, which are referred to the council for decision by the OIA, the Office of the Independent Assessor. The requirements are that the legislative provisions, which are specified in the Local Government Act, require certain elements to be included in any policy, but other than that, they don't restrict the way in which any council may proceed in relation to the adoption of such a policy. The councillors who all have a copy of the proposal, there'll be some minor amendments, but I might touch on the ones that are of significance. My view is that the example policy and the current policy have the Mayor involved in managing an investigation, and even the ability of the Mayor and any one of the councils in Queensland to appoint themselves as the investigator. I believe that councillors should be generally free from the involvement in that it's at arm's length, and the Chief Executive Officer, as the recommendation on the draft, would administratively manage the investigation. Now, the proposed change enables any current matters or any matters in the near future to be actioned by the Chief Executive officer. There is a panel established under the LGAQ local by which could be utilised. I understand that there are 4 organisations which are specified in that panel, and until the count, so how that would read would be that there is an overriding ability of the council to amend that in the future, but the incorporation of that provision, which was raised in the last 24 hours, enables the process to continue unabated without any delays. There is another provision that when the matter comes back to council with a recommendation from the investigator, this is in relation to 15.2, and there is no quorum present either because of conflicts with the number of councillors or absent councillors, the council, the original example policy allowed either the mayor or a standing committee be delegated to make a decision. The way this reads now, to be referred to a standing committee, which can be an existing standing committee or could be a standing committee in a particular case which was established at the time for referral of that particular matter. That'd be a matter for the council. It's leaving it open. It doesn't specify which committee, or that it has to be an existing standing committee or one that could be provided in the future. Now, the legislation, and this is just going back to page 7. This is a provision that cannot be changed by council, that costs can be awarded against a councillor where they're found to have a conduct breach has been committed, and that's still in there. If councillors look at page 7 of 23, that recognises the legal position that the council always has the power to award costs in a particular case. But if councillors go to item 16 at the top of page 13, if the numbering is consistent, the council can adopt a policy. And it's in my view that if we contrast the situation of the complaints that come back to council, they are generally, I think it'd be fair to say, of a lower level than the ones that go to the Councillor Conduct Tribunal, which are misconduct matters and are a much more serious level. The Councillor Conduct Tribunal invariably does not award costs for either the costs of training or the costs of an investigation. So the council can have a policy of not awarding costs because these are at a lower level, but we could still, there is no doubt that council could still award those costs based on the seriousness of a matter, the regularity of a matter and the circumstances of the matter which it's faced with making a decision after receiving a report from the investigator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Madden is the seconder. Do you wish to speak to the matter?
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to say that I think these amendments to the example provided by the local government are very sensible. I don't think it's appropriate for a councillor, including the Mayor, to be involved where a complaint is made against a councillor, and I believe a third party should do that investigation. And I think the example of what we've seen in the media as happened in Townsville is a good reason why it shouldn't be another councillor that makes an investigation when a complaint is made against a councillor. So I'm pleased to support these the motion.
Thank you. I think, Councillor Dodd, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, potentially for the CEO, and I guess she'll determine if it's herself or somebody else within the department. I'd just like to start by saying apologies. I'm still getting up to speed. I was out last night at my son's final play at QUT, Bachelor of Fine Arts, and fittingly their final performance was on politics. And the play is directed by Wesley Enoch, who obviously is brother of former Minister Leanne Enoch. So it was certainly a very relevant night compared to what I do daily. So I just want to say at the outset, I'm completely supportive of the whole process being impartial, and I don't think it's appropriate for Mayor or councillors to be managing the process. Certainly from my experience over the last 4 years, we absolutely need independence and impartiality. At the same time, I want to make sure that these amendments to this policy, as Councillor Tully pointed out, there's minimum requirements, certain elements that are required to be within our policy, but ultimately doesn't restrict council or direct council into what type of a policy we formulate. But I do want to make sure it meets community standards, and we are certainly complying with the intention of the legislation. So I guess my first question is, for the CEO, is it consistent with the legislation, for instance, that it accurately and clearly sets out the process and procedure expected of a local government under the legislation and regs?
Through the chair, yes, I consider that it does.
Okay. May I ask, CEO, has legal within council had a look at this policy, given it a health check to ensure it does comply with legislation requirements?
No, through the chair, no, they have not. As you are aware from the briefing, councillor, and all councillors, we took from the example policy and put the draft up. Myself, I only saw the revisions that have been proposed today last night. So I've had the opportunity to review them last night, as has the Manager of Executive Services. All I can say is that we don't see any concerns with the proposed amendments, but they haven't been provided to internal legal services for review.
Yeah. Okay, excellent, thank you. I guess the final item I have just around the introduction of the term administratively. I want to ensure that the inclusion of that term does not limit the way the CEO would operationalise, be expected to operationalise this procedure. And there's various different definitions of administratively, but it's my expectation and belief under the legislation that you would be formulating a report, a scope of works to go to the independent administrator, the independent investigator. I just want to make sure that the use of the term, the inclusion of the term administratively.
Should we ask Councillor Tully that question? What did you mean by, what was the intent behind the word administratively?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Perhaps if that's the last question, I can respond to the three issues.
I've got another question too, but I'll let you do that.
Yeah, on in relation to that, that was a suggestion from the Manager of Executive Services. I discussed this, that to make it clear that it's an administrative management, that it's not an operational thing where the CEO is involved in the actual investigation. That it's the administrative requirements that are required under the policy and in accordance with the legislation. And it's purely a term which I think makes it clear that it's part of the CEO's administrative role to implement and give effect to the policy.
So does that mean you think it would still, the CEO could set the scope of work for the investigator and so on?
Yeah.
Would you consider that as...
And yes, absolutely. In relation to the annexures to this, it makes it clear that the CEO has to ensure that that there's no conflict, for example, no conflict of interest in the investigator. I would see it as, it's just purely, it's not a trick word, it's one that Mr Wilson sort of, I thought that was quite appropriate to, and I think it's important, it's not just sort of something I dreamed up, as a word. It was a word I hadn't even thought of, but I think it makes it very clear that it's the administrative process of implementing the policy rather than being involved in the actual investigation itself. And I would see that process, referring the matter and providing all of the information, doing the paperwork and the legwork to get it to the relevant investigator.
So who will decide on what information or evidence is provided in the brief to the investigator? would that
believe
be
that.
within your role as administrative lean? Yeah,
That's
just
my understanding
yeah.
Absolutely.
through the mayor.
Absolutely.
just-
Through the chair.
yeah, making sure it doesn't potentially erode
And I think
your
that
powers.
sorry,
Yeah.
forgive me, through the
please,
chair. So, yeah, I do believe that it is sufficiently clear in the policy and the annexures there. I don't have any concerns with the use of that term there. It's clear to me, but
Yep,
if there was a
perfect.
particular concern, I'd be happy to.
Yep, no,
No?
that's fine. And
Thank
my
you.
only final thing is, what happens if there is a conflict for the CEO if the CEO of any council is also the complainant? Because I imagine there's a lot of complaints that come through from staff, and CEOs are obliged to action those.
Yeah, so the advice that I have is that I'm not a decision maker as to the final matter,
Okay.
that the conflict can be effectively managed.
Managed,
But
perfect.
should it be the case that it's not, that the perception would be that I'm not able to, that my appointment of an investigator would represent a conflict of interest, then I could potentially, unless the council didn't allow it, sub-delegate to a general manager, for example, or I could bring it back to council for a different resolution. But the advice that I have is that as I'm administering a process and not a decision maker in the substantive matter, that there isn't really a conflict of interest. But
Okay,
yeah,
but should there be a
Circum-
conflict?
circumstances can always emerge, can't they?
It would, you
yep.
would delegate to a general manager.
And that's a good point, because also under the Act, if a member of the general public email the CEO with a complaint about councillors, the CEO is obligated to refer it. There is no leeway. They have to do it, same as any of us. If we receive a complaint from the general public about someone at a council, we have no leeway. We actually have to refer it. So, yeah, thank you.
Could I just
Yeah,
add
sure.
to that? I think, as the CEO explained, that it's two separate processes.
Yeah.
One is the requirement under the legislation to refer to the OIA. Once that's been done, the next step is just in relation to giving effect administratively to the process under this policy. I see them as two separate, because the CEO is not the investigator, and it's purely in the hands of the investigator, which is basically what the sample policy says, and that's been replicated in the number of changes that have been made.
I'm just going to backtrack to see if Councillor Tully's answered all your questions, Councillor Doyle.
Yeah, I guess my main concern was to ensure that the policy reflects, and certainly any of the amendments don't water down the CEO's ability to provide fulsome instructions and evidence to an external investigator. Thank you.
Councillor Tully, I guess my main question was about how you would see this panel being formed.
That's a very good question, because it wasn't for me, and it's up to the council, and maybe the way in which that additional words have been utilised, maybe we never have to form a separate panel or proposal. But there are a number of options. One is to just, as this policy, if it's agreed to, with a local buy, that could simply continue. It might be that council believes that it could set up its own panel of individuals, and we could call for expressions of interest from persons who are appropriately qualified. And this would be a matter for a future council meeting, certainly not today. Or it could be a combination of both. I don't have a fixed view on it. I think whatever we do, in the past, matters have been determined by 10 or more years ago by local panels, I guess, to inquire into councillor conduct. But I think that's a matter all of us need to think about, not necessarily today. I don't have a fixed view on it. There's a number of combinations or ways in which we could go about that. So I guess we might talk about that at a future briefing about how we might proceed. If we want to, there's no requirement for us to do that if we're happy for the LDAQ panel to be utilised.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the only sticking point. Obviously, we can't, as councillors, handpick who the investigators are to investigate ourselves. So I just want to make sure that whatever is done appropriately, also following local government procurement rules in the local government regulations as well. So I'm just making, I know there wouldn't be, yeah.
Could I add one more? What I didn't say is that once a panel is established, if we do it that way, if we move to it in a slightly different direction, that it's up, that the decision of council should make it clear that once the panel's formed, the decision is of the CEO, not councillors, to appoint an individual investigator for an individual matter.
So I'll come back to my question. How do you see the panel being formed? Because we're giving a fair bit of power to the panel. So I know you're saying you want to discuss it later, but that's probably for me the only sticking point I have with this. Yeah.
Today, we to adopt a policy, we have to establish a process for appointing an investigator.
Yeah.
So the way it reads at the moment, with those additional words, that's a matter for the CEO alone to utilise local buy as the panel, and the decision to make that decision.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that. How we move in the future is probably a little, to be honest, is a little bit more complicated. But I think if we did move in a different direction, which could include local buy in the future, and it could include other elements, that it would be made clear that the decision about when a complaint has to be referred to an investigator, that is a matter for the particular investigator, a matter solely for the CEO.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open up for any other discussion. I guess for myself, just look at the modifications that have been suggested were made to the governance arrangements for the management of council conduct complaints in the Local Government Act. And these updates that have been brought forward will bring a council in line with legislation, because at the moment it's a bit of a mismatch. The Department of Housing, Local Government Planning and Public Works have issued an example local government investigation policy, and this new version has been closely modelled on the best practice examples supplied by the state. Now, I do understand that the email that you sent out to us, and I want to thank you, Councillor Tully, for sending this out to us last night so we had the time to review that, but obviously the public haven't seen that. In regards to swapping out the mayor and putting the chief executive, as discussed a couple of weeks ago, Councillor Tully, I have no issue with that. And as you know, when we dealt with an inappropriate conduct matter in 2020, my immediate response was to go to the CEO for them to appoint an independent investigator. And as council officers know, I was not involved in that investigation in any way. I literally don't have the time, and I also agree that it needs to be very impartial for people to have full faith in that investigation report. And that's my commitment to transparency and also my commitment to independence. That's what I've done in the past, and so I'm very happy for that to continue. I'm just, I guess the other thing to discuss is, Councillor Tully, I know that you and I had one phone call about the changing from me to the CEO. Just wondering if you have had other discussions with other councils about this policy in the lead up to you sending out the draft yesterday?
Only briefly in the last couple of councils had mentioned that issue about the CEO and mayor. All whether it's the mayor or we could nominate another councillor, a deputy mayor or chair of a particular committee, just that it should be seen to be independent. That councillors are at arm's length from that process once the matter is referred to the CEO by the OIA.
And was there any other feedback when you spoke to other? Did you speak to other councils about the panel arrangements?
Not really. It was the manager of executive services mentioned to me, and I wasn't aware about the panel at the LGAQ in local buy. I thought that was an opportunity which we can utilise, as any local government can utilise the panels in local buy because they've already basically pre-approved. That opens up, with that change, that just opens up the opportunity for the CEO to use local buy unless and until any other decision is made by council in the future.
Okay. No, thank you. Any other? Yes, Councillor Augustine?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Can I just get clarification exactly what local buy means, Councillor Tully?
Well, there might be people who can explain a bit more than I do. There are requirements under legislation to call for quotes and tenders and whatever. Local buy covers a range of services. It could be the purchase of vehicles. It could be a whole range of services provided that local governments need to acquire. And local buy is, I'd call it a pre-approval. Perhaps the CEO could. So if you utilise local buy, you don't have to go through any other process about the value of the tender or the value of the acquisition. It has really opened up in the last few years the ability for and it benefits external organisations, say they're car retailers. In dealing with them, we can utilise local buy as the way of proceeding. Perhaps the CEO.
I think the CEO is very open.
Just add a bit more to that.
Yeah. I don't know, just things I'm trying
I'll
to work it out.
I'll just let the CEO respond.
Okay.
So thank you, Chair. So, yeah, Local Government Association of Queensland established Local Buy, created it in 2001. So it is essentially, as Councillor Tully has described, it is Queensland's principal local government procurement partner and largest provider of legislatively compliant pre-qualified supplier arrangements in Queensland. So the local government regulation that governs local governments in Queensland has a specific reference in the provisions that deal with procurement and contractual arrangements. It specifically references it specifically references preferred supplier arrangements established by the Local Government Association of Queensland, and that is effectively local buy.
Okay, thank you. Now that I was just concerned about the word local. So it's local government. I was thinking local here, and I was thinking, investigations locally would be very counterproductive.
Obviously, all levels of government and often many different departments have their own panels. And that way, every supplier has signed up to the terms and conditions whether it comes to payment, confidentiality, all that sort of stuff. The one that the Local Government Association of Queensland have, their panel's called Local Buy. Any other Councillor Doyle?
No.
No. Any other comments? Councillor Tully, I'll hand over to you. Any in closing before we go to vote?
Thanks to the councillors for the questions and comments. It's a sensitive sort of issue. There's no doubt about that. But I think principally we can, to the community, saying that councillors are now at arm's length from the process, except where by law we have to be involved, which is at the end of the process. You can have the individual investigator who puts forward a report. At the end of the day, it comes to council for its final decision about whether or not a complaint is upheld or dismissed. And that again is an issue we've faced before, and by law we will have to face in the future.
Thank you. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I've overlooked. May I please ask people to raise their hands who agree? It's everyone except Councillor Doyle. Those against, 0. Those abstaining, Councillor Doyle. My apologies, Councillor Doyle. I'll now move on to item 15.3, which is the report of the Community and Sport Committee of the 14th of November. And I'll hand it to the chair of that committee to see how he would like this report managed.
Just for Council to adopt the recommendations as per the meeting agenda.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madsen. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Augustine. I'll hand over to you as the mover, Councillor Madsen.
Yep, pretty standard meeting. We had a customer service report card and a report on the Active Kids program, which is some good work undertaken by the officers, and I recommend the recommendations to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Augustine, as the seconder. Would you like to make any comment?
Just agree with Councillor Madsen. It was great reports. Thank you.
Thank you. I think item 2, the customer service report card. The report card shows that over the past financial year there were improved average call wait times, service response to emails and online service requests, and increased staff retention, which is fantastic. It's a really great result for residents and also for council staff. So if you called council in June 2024, the average wait time was 3 minutes and 11 seconds compared to 9 minutes and 23 seconds in June 2023. So well done on the team. Item 3, which is the 2024 Active Kids program. The Active Kids program provides free and low-cost physical and outdoor recreation activities and nutrition workshops during the April, July and September school holidays and selected periods during the school term. And this year's program offered 262 activities and had over 5,000 participants. So that's a 218% increase in participation from the previous year, with 34% more activities offered. So these activities are offered right across our city, across 22 different suburbs, across all 4 divisions, and include things like sport, dance, nutrition classes, orienteering, photography, skating, riding and camping skills, to name a few. So these activities are often co-designed with community and industry, leading to great results. So by joining the active and healthy programming alongside the school holiday program in Toowoomba Place, both attracted more kids at the same place at the same time. Also, that boosted participation as well. I'll open up for any other comments. Councillor Madden?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, and with regard to item 4, membership of the Community and Sports Committee, I'd like to welcome Councillor Martin as a member of the Community and Sports Committee. Given his involvement with various sporting groups in Ipswich over a number of years, I'm sure he'll make a valuable contribution to the committee.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Madsen, anything in closing before we go to the vote?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put those to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. I now move on to item 15.4, which is the report of the Economic and Cultural Development Committee of the 14th of November 2024. And I'll hand over to Councillor Augustine as the Chair. How would you like this report managed?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the Economic and Cultural Development Report 2024-6 of the 14th of November be received and adopted.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Augustine, would you like to speak to the matter?
Oh, yes, please, Mayor. Mayor, in particular, item 3, I'd like to speak to it. Our businesses are very important to the economic growth to our city, and partnering up with the chambers just assists our businesses with their networking and building the fundamental building blocks to our businesses. So I'm very happy to partner up with the Greater Springfield Chamber going forward for the 2024-25 and then 25-26, so dual year. So at least we've got consistency and with both the chambers. So very happy with that one, as well as the report for the NSP since opening. Since the 8th of November to the 28th of November, we've had 91,000 footprint come through, with 14,400 through the actual venue. So those numbers adds to, we've got a great asset for council and for us to build. We haven't finished, just on reports since the opening of the venue, Hoyts and also the Hotel Commonwealth. We've had increased contact for businesses wanting to just have a look and see what our Nicholas Precinct is all about. So I'm very, excited about the prospects. On the 4th of December, kicking in, seafood will be opening. That's one of the things that's very, I'm very excited about because I love seafood. So I'm happy to go along to that. Oh, you said great, Mr. Councillor Tully. I really want to highlight the passion and the dedication of our Nicholas Street Precinct team, Mr. James Hepburn and Melissa Annis. They are the passion that they take to actually want to create a great asset for us. You can see by their smiles and their enthusiasm and just their dedication. So I really need to, pay great respect to the whole team, but in particular those two. That's all. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, sorry, the last one. Also, Councillor Martin, we've welcomed him onto our committee as well. So thank you, and I think you will have lots of great knowledge, because you know a lot of the businesses in Ipswich, so you have a lot of input into the committee as well. So thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Councillor Dawes, seconder, do you wish to make any comment on the report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just would like to concur with Councillor Augustine's comments. It's been very exciting with the opening of a number of outlets within venue. And I spend a lot of time, obviously, within Ipswich Central with friends, and so I'm seeing firsthand our CBD slowly coming to life with regard to a nighttime economy. And yes, the Ratmond family boys are headed to the movies regularly now. So they would ordinarily head into Brisbane with their mates. So they're just examples of the young ones that have been waiting for a cinema of this standard. So it's great to see.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll speak to item 2, which is the Advocacy Advisory Committee, but it was the committee meeting that we had on the 3rd of October, and just reporting to everyone that at that particular committee meeting on the 3rd of October that we discussed the We Can't Wait campaign and the funding commitments that we received ahead of the state election as a result of the very successful campaign. We received commitments from both the LNP and Labor that will see the Ipswich Central River crossing progress to a shovel-ready status. And the state and the federal governments jointly committed $20 million for detailed planning on the Cunningham Highway, which will also be used to undertake business cases on the Ipswich Rosewood Road at the Amberley intersection. It was also expanding that to look at the Ripley Road and Swanbank Road interchanges. We also saw the introduction of 4 new bus routes with 2 new bus services operating every 15 minutes at peak commute times, as well as planning for additional routes in coming years. We're also at that meeting updated in relation to the North Ipswich Sport Entertainment Precinct Western Grandstand project by the architects, and we're hoping to see that that design is completed by the end of the year and will obviously come to council as well. Any other comments on this report? No, in that case, Councillor Augustine, as the mover, do you wish to make any comments in closing before we vote? Okay, put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. It's now after 10, so it's 10:04, so I propose that we adjourn for 30 minutes and come back at 10:34. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? I think it's unanimous except for Councillor Tully. Oh, yeah, thank you. So it's unanimous. See you back at 10:34. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome back to the Ordinary Council meeting, the 28th of November 2024. It's 10:34. I can see all councillors are in attendance. Now we're up to item 15.5, which is the report of the Environment and Sustainability Committee of the 14th of November 2024. I'll hand over to the chair of that report to see how he'd like that managed. Thanks, Councilman.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'd like to move that the Environment and Sustainability Committee report number 2024-06 dated the 14th of November 2024 be received and adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Tinley. As the mover, would you like to speak to it, Councilman?
Yes, there's one particular item I'd like to speak to, and that's item 4, Mayor, community disaster risk awareness education. And, you know, in my role as councillor for Division 4, every now and again, I feel the coalface of people that are very concerned about the possibility of future flooding in their area. And last night, we were very fortunate that Matthew Pinder, the Manager for Disaster and Natural Hazards from the Ipswich City Council, addressed the Carolee Community Association and talked about what preparations Council is making with regard to that particular area. And a key item of what he spoke about was, and it's a unique situation, Mayor, that we're going to build a building on the grounds of the Carolee School, because the place of refuge for that area is the Carolee School Hall. And we're in the process of building that building, and it'll be stocked with items that will be used in times of disaster. So I'd really like to thank Matthew Pinder and his team for their preparation. They answered all the questions that were thrown at them last night. But just to inform people that aren't familiar with the sort of geography of that Carolee, Barallan Point, even Chuar to some degree, one road in, one road out. Even the Mount Crosby road gets flooded. That's the one main road in. But the particular road in Carolee that gets flooded that causes problems is called Junction Road. And it floods in a number of points. When I say flood, it floods really early. You know, they're very deep gullies. And once Junction Road is flooded, that's it, you can't get out. But recently Council undertook a study called the Carolee Emergency Access Feasibility Study. And again, I congratulate those council officers that are involved in this study. And what that study did was trying to identify, I won't say a high-level road, but a high-level access point for people that live in the flooded areas to be able to actually get back to Mount Crosby Road. Now, currently the road doesn't exist, but what hopefully Council will do will be to build a gravel road that's only open in those times, but it will allow some movement from the area when it's isolated, when Junction Road is completed. There's also another item that has been spoken about for years that would give another access to that area, and that's the Moggill Arterial Road. Now, the state government is in the process of doing the planning to build what might be called the Carolee Interchange, a brand new interchange halfway between the existing Mount Crosby Road interchange and the Brisbane River. Now, the interesting thing about the proposed interchange, it would be the interchange for the Moggill Arterial Road. It is built on the easement that's been preserved for the Moggill Arterial Road. And to give people an idea of where you go to with that, it's planned that will connect with the Western Freeway around about Fig Tree Pocket. And I'm always concerned when I hear about tunnels wanting to be built under the Western Freeway and all this stuff, and new bridges being built. And I wonder why there isn't more talk about construction of the Moggill Arterial Road. So again, I'd like to thank Matthew for his good work last night and answered all the questions that were thrown at him at the Carolee Community Association meeting. And obviously I'd like to thank all of the council officers involved in disaster management. It's a little bit like a will. You know, you do it and hope you never have to use it, but when you've got to use it, it's got to work. And that's what disaster management is about. And I'm confident that when we do inevitably suffer another flood in the Carolee area, that our team will jump into action and do what needs to be done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tinley as the seconder. Would you wish to speak to the report as well? No. I'll open up for any other discussion. Yes, Councillor Martin.
Through the chair, I'd also like to concur with Councillor Madden. I was at the meeting last night, the Carolee one. There were a couple of prickly questions thrown at Matt Pinder, and he handled them with, how would you say, grace and aplomb. And he certainly softened the crowd for when Councillor Madden got up to speak. So I'd also like to concur. Thank you, Matthew. Well done.
Mayor, I got no questions about flooding when I got up. I had plenty of other things to talk about.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion? In that case, I think you just spoke again, Councillor Mann. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Now move on to item 16.1, the CEO's Organisation Performance Report for October 2024. Are there any questions of the CEO on the report? In that case, I will move it. Do I have a seconder for it? Thank you, Councillor Augustine. Move that the CEO's report be received and contents noted. In speaking to it, I see that the Council's libraries have conducted the annual survey and received a 92% satisfaction rating. And the survey results reflect the commitment of staff to exceed community expectations and ensure a positive experience for all visitors. I also see that 5 new shade shelters have been installed along the paths at the Ipswich Nature Centre just in time for summer, which is fantastic. The centre welcomed over 160,000 visitors last year and is the only council-run free zoo in South East Queensland, and it's one of the city's biggest attractions. And with these new shade shelters, the Ipswich Nature Centre will be even more pleasant to visit. I also note the newly constructed 4 lanes from Highbury Drive to Argyle Street on Redback Plains Road has opened ahead of schedule, which is fantastic, and quite a remarkable achievement given some of the challenges this upgrade has had earlier in the year. So well done to the contractors and the organisation. I'll open it up for any other discussion. Yes, Councillor Augustine. Oh, sorry, I couldn't see it. That angle is very difficult.
Green thing about it. Thanks, Mayor. I too want to put some light around the satisfaction around libraries. I think it's one of the, for me, it's one of the only, very few, I should say, things that are free to join. So if anyone doesn't have a library card, I'd say it would be great to be able to join the libraries because they offer some really good functions for our community, which look at the rating, 92% satisfaction rate. And also, can we just say, I think Councillor Madsen, Councillor Tully and also Deputy Mayor would be very excited about the Redbank Plains Road. Finally, the stage 3, it's been a long journey and the residents have been very, very patient with the development of that road. So thank you to everyone that has contributed to that road opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Open up for any other discussion. Okay, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 16.2, which is the Q1 Annual Plan 2024-25, the Quarterly Performance Report. Are there any questions of council officers on this report? In that case, I will move this. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In speaking to this, I can see that Council has delivered quite a lot in the last quarter. Major openings of anchor tenants in the Nicholas Street precinct with Hoyts, General Public and Hotel Commonwealth now open. We also have had 5 new leases progress through this first quarter as well. We have seen the progress on the South East Queensland City Deals Sub-Regional Alliance Material Recovery Facility with the procurement of the earthworks, which is now set to start in the second quarter. The Riverview Green Waste Hardstand was completed, doubling in its size, and I can let you know that my husband visited there last week and thinks it's a fantastic facility as well, as a frequent visitor there. The new on-demand curbside large item collection service saw almost 3,000 households request bags with 350 tonnes of items collected with 70% of that waste recycled. And I think that's really important to see that 70% because it was before the that biannual collection 100% was going into landfill. We've also had some great advocacy wins this quarter. Following years of our Better Bus Network advocacy, the state government committed to delivering new bus services for Redbank Plains, Collingwood Park, Augustine Heights, Bellbird Park, Springfield, Debbing Heights and Carolee in 2025, as well as a new direct route linking Springfield and Ipswich via Redbank Plains and improved connectivity to rail services and to Ipswich Hospital. In 2025 to 2026, we will see improved service connectivity to the Ripley Valley Priority Development Area, which is a real win. The extension of existing routes in areas north and south of Ipswich, Springfield Lakes, Kimera and Spring Mountain will also start in 2026-2027. This quarter, Council launched our very successful We Can't Wait campaign by amplifying the voices of Ipswich residents. We received significant commitments on decades-old projects for the first time. This included commitments from both major parties to progress the Ipswich Central Second River Crossing to shovel-ready status, and also the commitment from the state and the federal governments to jointly committed to $20 million for detailed planning of the Cunningham Highway from Amberley to the Swanbank Road interchange. I'll open up for other discussion. Yes, Councillor Madden.
Mayor, I just wanted to say I'll be very pleased when the details are finally delivered as to bus services to Carolee. I know it was mentioned in the budget state government budget in a few years, but the only words were public buses to Carolee, no details. And I guess we want to know, is it just going to be to the Carolee Shopping Centre? Is it going to be to Chua? Is it going to be a bit further on? So really, I know the residents of the Carolee area are very interested to know the details of the bus service for Carolee.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Next item is 16.3. It's a normal report we have after an election. It's the 2024 Division 4 Council by-election report. And I'll move that the report titled 2024 Division 4 Council by-election report be received and the contents noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Madden. I'll open up for any discussion. Councillor Madden.
Mayor, through you, I'd like to congratulate Councillor David Martin on his election as a councillor for Division 4. I thought he ran a very positive campaign with the by-election for Division 4. We are both born and bred in Ipswich, and we both love our great city of Ipswich. I look forward to continuing to work with Councillor Martin as co-councillor of Division 4, and I know that we will always take the fight up for the residents of Division 4.
Thank you, Councillor Madden, and the whole of the city. Thank you. For those of you, Councillor Tully was joking, also Division 2. But under local government, we serve the entire city. I'll open up for other discussion into the comments. Councillor Antonelli.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate David on his successful re-election to council and commend him again on his positive campaign. Such a convincing and resounding election result proves the majority decision of the council to support a democratic vote for the vacant position was indeed the correct one. The people of Division 4 were given the opportunity to express their voice, they had their say, and they spoke emphatically. By going to the vote, we can now be confident that the will of the people was exercised and sits before us now in the chamber. Congratulations, David. I look forward to working with you, as I have done in many community committees in the past, but I look forward to working with you here on council for the next 3.5 years.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Anything else? Councillor Martin, would you like to make some opening remarks? Or make some remarks?
Absolutely, if I could. So I'd just like to say, honestly, I'm humbled and honoured to be re-elected to public office. I'd like to thank my wife, I dare say, long-suffering supporters, so thank you so much. It's an absolute privilege to be here, and I certainly don't take for granted public office and intend to honour and serve the people of Division 4 that have put their faith and trust in me. I'm certainly grateful, and once again thankful for this opportunity. I'd like to thank the people that have put their trust in me. I intend to work together for the good of our whole city as we work collectively to see our city prosper and thrive. I've been overwhelmed by support by everybody here in this chamber, actually. I'd like to start with the Mayor, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Augustine, Councillor Johnnick, probably pains me a little bit, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, I was going to say myself. And I'd also like to reiterate, Councillor Madden, that I'm looking forward to working with Councillor Madden for the good, not only of residents of Division 4, but as the Mayor said, for the whole city. And so finally...
No, Councillor, I'm sure you're not a pork chop.
Oh, sorry, did I miss you? Oh, I got to... Well, sorry, you were... Sorry, I'd also like to clarify, Councillor Antonelli, like to... Yeah, one job. Yeah, well, you've thrown me. You've thrown me. So, well, now I've lost my train of thought. So as I said, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors, the Mayor, and also the CEOs and the council staff. So once again, I've been overwhelmed, humbled, looking forward to working with each of you for the good of our city. So once again, thank you so much for this opportunity, and yeah, looking forward to working collectively. And what I really want to see is, you know, unity amongst council. Like, if we are going to work for the good of our city, we need to be a unified body. It's not just the council, but with our elected representatives, regardless of their political persuasion, to see good outcomes for our city. As I'm sure, you know, we all want to see good things happen. So yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I'll open up for any other. Councillor Tully?
Just briefly, given the half-hearted change as you went around the table in respect of me, I'd just say that councillors will be amazed into the future about Councillor Martin's perspicacity sometimes.
Can you spell that? No. Any other discussion? I guess as the mover of this, and before we go to the vote, Councillor Martin, I'd just like to welcome you, like I did at the swearing in. Welcome to Division 4, Councillor David Martin, on your very first council ordinary meeting of this term. You have been elected by the Ipswich community, and I wish you all the best, and I'm sure you will work in the best interests of the community, both in your division and for Ipswich as a whole. So welcome aboard. With that, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Are you not voting? Yeah, you're allowed to vote. Thank you. Unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 17, which is the notice of motion. I have none. I don't know if who's going to give a notice of one. No. 18, questions on notice. There were none. In that case, I will now close the meeting at 10:50. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.